Tennis is a lot of things. For starters, it's a sport that brings out the most fascinating levels of skill, mental strength, and agility on the courts. But on the flip side, it can also bring out the nastiest and most disrespectful outburst any sport has ever seen. One player choked the living daylights out of his opponent, and another went as far as spitting in his opponent's face. These are 8 of the most disrespectful moments in tennis history. Roger Federer. And first, we've got to start with Roger, because even if he's one of the most well-behaved tennis players on and off the tennis court, you just gotta face it. Even good guys have bad days sometimes. And it all went down at the US Open back in 2009. You see, after winning his 15th Grand Slam at the 2009 Wimbledon, the Swiss GOAT was ready to bag his 16th Slam at the US Open barely 3 months later. And at the finals, he had to go head-to-head against Argentine Juan Martín del Potro. But little did we know that that match would turn out so bad that it would even make it to this list. It started when the Swiss threw the S word at the chair umpire, Jack Garner, because he felt like Del Potro was taking too long to make a challenge, and the umpire allowed it. In his words, he said, "Don't tell me to be quiet, okay? When I want to talk, I talk. I don't give a shit what you say." At the end of the second set, Del Potro's late challenge overturned an out decision, which gave him an edge as he went on to break Federer's serve and took the second set. Like you would expect, Roger wasn't having it, so he called the umpire out, but instead of handling it more professionally, the umpire asked Federer to be quiet. Now this was where the Swiss completely lost his cool. "Don't tell me to be quiet, okay? When I want to talk, I talk. I don't give a shit what he said." Okay, let's be real. This isn't something you see every day. After the outburst, Federer was given a $1,500 fine for conduct violation. And the worst part, he ended up losing the tournament to Del Potro. Ouch. But you see, this isn't the first time that a tennis player would go crazy at the US Open. Because back in 1991, one player spat daggers at an umpire for making a bad call. That guy is Jimmy Connors. With the entire city of New York cheering him on, Connors faced the most nail-biting moment in his career at the 1991 Open. And it's not just because he made it into the tournament as a wild card at 39, but because he made it all the way to the 4th round. With that, all that stood between Connors and the quarterfinals was Aaron Krickstein. During the match, Connors hit an overhead shot that the chair umpire called out, setting up a set point that gave Aaron the upper hand. And that's when Connors decided it was showtime. The American launched into a verbal tirade aimed at the chair umpire, and it was nothing short of disrespectful. He even called the umpire a bum and then an abortion. Now, any other player in his shoes would have certainly bagged a penalty or even a fine for verbal abuse. But for some reason, the umpire did not give the tennis star a penalty. Connors even went on to win the match, just like McEnroe won the tournament. John McEnroe. During the first round at the 1981 Wimbledon, McEnroe faced off fellow American Tom Gullickson and made the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Now, before this match, our guy McEnroe already had a reputation of being quite a jerk on the court. But no one expected this match to produce one of the biggest outbursts in Wimbledon history. But in the early games, when McEnroe served what he thought to be an ace, and when the umpire called it out, all hell broke loose. This first outburst cost McEnroe a warning. But in the next game, McEnroe lost his temper again and called the umpire the absolute pits of the world. This time, he was slammed with a penalty point. But instead of getting his temper out of control, McEnroe went on and called the official an incompetent fool, even though the American went on to win the match and even the tournament that year. Wish we could say the same thing for the next player after she went crazy at the 1999 French Open. Martina Hingis. Now, you'd agree with me that Steffi Graf practically owned women's tennis in the 90s. But back in 1999, an 18-year-old rookie came very close to pulling off one of the greatest upsets in tennis history. That rookie was Martina Hingis. Hingis was so good that at just 18, she was sitting pretty with a 6-4, 2-0 lead against the legendary Steffi Graf during the finals of the 1999 French Open. Smooth sailing, right? Wrong. Because the 18-year-old blew her chances of bagging the slam just because she got all worked up over a call, thinking the umpire had misplaced his glasses and checked the wrong mark. Now, in tennis, one thing you're never supposed to do is cross over to your opponent's side of the court, and that's exactly what Hingis did. As if that wasn't enough, the crowd began to cheer for Steffi Graf. And that was where the 18-year-old lost it. She refused to continue playing until she spoke to the tournament referee, Nick Kyrus. You see, back in 2015, Nick, aka the bad boy of tennis, was slammed with a $10,000 fine. And the reason will blow your mind. Now, during the second round tie at the Rogers Cup match in Montreal, an on-court microphone picked up Kyrgios saying the most disrespectful thing to the Swiss two-time Grand Slam champion, Stan Wawrinka. And in his words,
"Because I do what I want."
Now, Nick is no stranger for being disrespectful on the court, but this is simply the absolute lowest he could have gone. Even Wawrinka couldn't hold back how he felt about Nick's statement, as he took to Twitter to talk about it. He wrote, "What was said, I wouldn't say to my worst enemy. To stoop so low is not only unacceptable, but also beyond belief." That must have hit home real bad, but certainly not as much as getting slammed in the face with a tennis ball. Robert Kendrick and Leander Paes. Now, whoever thought about the World Team Tennis did an amazing job. I mean, tossing all those tennis bigwigs onto the court together like ingredients in a lively stew? Let's have it! It showed how entertaining the sport could be, but it also meant that there was a good chance that personalities would clash like bumper cars at a carnival. And back in 2009, that clash started when Leander Paes tried to wind Robert Kendrick and his entire team up. Now, we're not exactly sure what went down, but the real action began when Paes decided to serve up a volley right smack into Kendrick's face. Ouch! It was so intense that the team managers were ready to turn the court to a wrestling match. And even when things were resolved, Ken wasn't about to let the disrespect slide. So, when he got the chance, he shot a serve back at Paes. Boom! And like you would expect, it resulted in another round of chaos. Now, this isn't the only time tennis players have lost their cool when they got disrespected. I mean, the next guy choked the living daylights out of Daniel Kollerer at the Austrian League match back in 2010. Stefan Koubek. And when you think about it, what on earth could Kollerer have done to push Stefan over the edge like that? I mean, hockey players don't grab their opponents by the throat. I mean, just think about it. Hockey is one of the most physical sports on the planet. Well, even though aggressive behavior should be absolutely frowned upon, it turns out that Kollerer has a ton of rep for being an instigator and a jerk. And this case was no exception, because he started the chaos by verbally attacking Stefan. And as if that wasn't enough, he went on to slap a racket out of Koubek's hand. And that was where the poor guy lost his temper. Thankfully, they were pulled apart before things got worse. And now that we're down to the last one, we've got to talk about the single most disrespectful moment in history. Because nothing on this list is as disrespectful as spitting at his opponent. Which actually happened to Leighton Hewitt by this guy, Juan Ignacio Chela. Now, if you've ever watched Leighton play, then you would have noticed that the Australian has a habit of yelling "come on" every time he wins a point. But in the third round of the 2005 Australian Open, his opponent Chela got absolutely sick of it. And to make matters worse, he was on the losing side of the match. So during the change of ends in the fourth set of the match, Chela did the most disrespectful thing ever. He spat in Hewitt's direction. Disgusting! But hey, you know what they say, what goes around comes around. Because Hewitt ended up winning the match and advancing to the fourth round, while our buddy Chela here got slammed with a $2,000 fine. So there you have it, folks. I guess in the end you can say that tennis players can go over the edge sometimes. Which of these moments is the most disrespectful to you? Let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to learn more interesting things about your favorite tennis players.